Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. I'm Sohn here hanging out with the trees and the clouds and the bears and the turkeys with Sohn Social Media Solutions, where we help impact-focused brands and entrepreneurs and nonprofits level up their live shows and virtual events. And I'm so excited for our show today, Jim, because I had a chance to get on a call with this amazing guy down here. Our show has gone global just by the fact that he's here.
That's right.
But Jim, take it away. I can't contain my excitement. Sorry.
I'm excited as well. Darren is in España. Am I correct?
You're correct.
And, hablo un poco español. My mom is from Peru. And so one of my goals, bucket list things, Darren, is actually to do the Camino.
El Camino de Santiago, Camino del Norte, El Camino de Madrid. There's lots of them. The one they're amazing to Santiago. Brilliant.
Yes. So that's on the list. I don't know if you know about that, Tim. That's a 30-day walk.
30 days.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. You're basically living that out of whatever you put on your back. And it's read some stories. There's a couple short movies about it. But it helps you find yourself, is what I've been told. So one of these days I'm going to find myself. And so
you're right here.
But
find yourself with bleeding feet, with no shoes left and things like that. I'm telling you, Jim, but absolutely. Yeah. I cheated. I did it a few years ago with a couple of friends, but we cycled. So it's not really quite the same, I tell you. So just to fill you in a little bit, Tim. So what happens is you're basically walking for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And as Jim says, the bag on your back and that's it, right? So we would maybe, on the bikes, we would maybe cover 70, 80 kilometers a day. We'd arrive from you get little places that are laid out just for the people that are doing the Camino. And you see them all exhausted, welts on their feet, bleeding. And then we hop off our bikes and we're looking to, hey guys, hey everyone. So we did it the wrong way. You need to walk and feel the pain. And you miss a lot of the experience as well on bikes. So as nice as it was to take in the countryside, the experience, the spiritual awakening didn't quite happen because, we're cycling it through. But Jim, it's on my bucket list as well, brother. I think it's a phenomenal thing. People who have done it swear by it. They just say it's really quite transformational in many different ways. So yeah, definitely a good one on the bucket list, my friend.
Yes. So Darren, tell us about yourself. I mean, you don't sound Spanish. You sound like you might be English, Irish, something along those lines.
Close, Scottish. So
you're
right.
I'm sorry.
I'm the worst Spaniard in the world, so I'm sorry, Jim. I'll forgive you, my brother. Don't worry. Yeah, so I'm Scottish. I've lived in Spain for almost 10 years now, so yo hablo un poco español también. Nada más. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, so my background is, I'm a qualified secondary high school teacher. So my undergraduate was English literature, postgraduate in education. Taught in Scotland for a few years and came over to Spain and worked in a British school. A very long story short, because it'll take all day otherwise, but kind of grew a bit frustrated with essentially kids' educations and futures being purely monetized, right? So I ended up doing a lot of business-to-business work, teaching English as a second language. Surprise, surprise. And from there, really got into the storytelling aspect of all. I grew up with stories. I love stories. Stories have always been so central to myself and my career. So when the pandemic hit, I was hit with no income whatsoever because a lot of the classes got stopped. We weren't prepared for it face-to-face virtually. So it was really then I became, look, I'm going to get out of this pandemic because Spain went onto a really heavy lockdown. We weren't allowed to leave our houses apart from to go to the pharmacist, the doctor, or the supermarket. That was it. So I was really determined, right? I'm going to come out of this pandemic with something I didn't have before. And basically started working with people on their storytelling, presentation skills. And this morphed into, got a couple of coaches of my own, James Liu, Richard Moore. And it morphed into this, people asking about LinkedIn, how do you sell successfully? How do you become successful on LinkedIn? And for me, the hint was stories. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, but it's all about stories. And when I noticed that, I started noticing people's posts doing better. And that's really what I do. So I work with coaches, solopreneurs, small businesses who are grinding away on LinkedIn, putting out the content, but not getting the engagement and the conversion. So that's really what I do.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Now, did someone bring you to Spain, or did the job bring you to Spain?
Life brought me to Spain. Let's get all philosophical for a minute here, Jim. Yeah, life brought me to Spain. No, the warm weather. I'm Scottish, you know. I was cold, tired of cold winters, tired of cold summers, and I thought, you know what? There's got to be a better way here. So for me, yeah, I thought I'd come out for a year or two, see what it was like, learn a little bit of Spanish, and yeah, a decade later, here I am still. So yeah, I love it.
Nice. I'm with you there on escaping the cold. I mean, once you get away from a cold area, I don't know that you can ever go back. My wife likes to change the seasons, and I'm like, well, can't we just go visit the change of seasons? But haven't convinced her yet.
You'll get there, Jim.
Yeah. So we should thank everyone. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in. Nancy Barrows is here. She says, been here the whole time. Thank you for being here, the 8 minutes. And she's been here before then, commenting even before. So appreciate you, Nancy Barrows from LA. Darren was commenting before we were live. Love that. Jim commenting. Yes. Gabe Leal, thank you for being here. He's always shining the light bright on other LinkedIn live streamers. So thank you for being here. Chris Stone, the Bears and the Turkeys send their best. Yes. Gabe had a lovely conversation with you last week. That's awesome.
We did. I was about to say, Gabe's awesome. Really enjoyed hanging out with him. Really lovely guy. And hey, guys, what a job he's doing here for the live streaming community on LinkedIn, right? I mean, he's curating it. It's that idea. I talk a lot on my feed about community and building a community. A community is organic, and audience is it's kind of forced almost, you know. Just because people turn up and give the odd like, that's an audience. A community is the sharing and growing of ideas together. And my God, Gabe is absolutely one of the best for it. So thank you, Gabe. Appreciate what you do, my friend.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely shout out to Gabe. Gabe, thank you so much for including the Tim and Jim show in your list of he's doing a list of live shows on LinkedIn with the links for people to watch. Gabe, can't thank you enough for the support you're giving people in the community. And I think, do we have him scheduled, Tim?
I believe if we don't, we should.
We should, right?
I know we had talked about it, so
yeah,
we should. If he's not already, he should be.
Yeah,
or will be, hopefully, if he wants to be. But I think so. Yes. So basically, maybe. I think so. Yeah, like that.
Definitely, maybe.
Definitely.
Great album. A great Oasis album, I'm telling you. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And Dorothy is here from Canada. Thank you for being here, Dorothy. She has an amazing live show called Unstoppable Overcomers. That's it.
Nice.
Alex Chambers is here from Colorado. Thanks for being here, Alex. Yes. Nancy says, share your story.
Yeah, Nancy says she walked 20 to 30 miles a day, waited at the end point each day with hug bags of candy to hand out to people as we returned to base camp. Beautiful. I think that's the spirit and the community. God, we're talking a lot about community today, gentlemen. That's the community of the Camino, right? And it's an amazing thing. And what Nancy's doing there, beautiful. Absolutely amazing. Awesome, Nancy.
Yeah, absolutely. So Darren and everyone here, today we're going to be talking about LinkedIn, and we're going to be talking about how to use stories on LinkedIn for conversion to get clients, kind of thing. So Darren, talk to us a little bit in terms of why do you think stories are so powerful?
Because they're what connect us, right? We've been sharing stories with one another for over 50,000 years. We even look now in the last recent few years, when we were all at school, let's be honest, the Neanderthals were our knuckle-dragging kind of cousins that were uneducated, couldn't really speak, didn't do art. We see more and more art beginning to be unearthed by our Neanderthal cousins. So they've used communication for a long time. Can you hear me okay? My camera seems to... You can see it. Am I moving or is...
Oh, you are freeze. Oh, now you're moving again. You were freezing for a little bit, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect.
It's a bit glitchy, but the audio is...
Yeah, okay. But as long as we've got the audio, that's the main thing, I suppose. Let's stop my cam and then start again, perhaps.
Okay.
Sorry, gentlemen. I'll continue though. So yes, there we go. A little bit better. Yes, we're back.
Yes, it's
Stories are powerful because they're what connect us, right? Whether it be our Neanderthal cousins, whether it be the Homo sapiens, cave art. One of my good contacts in here, Martin Barnes, give him a follow. He does Pitch Club. He talks about cave art being the PowerPoints of their day. And it's so true. We tell stories all the time. We naturally, through stories, are able to communicate. We're able to learn. We're able to actually share our message and our feelings with one another. And I think this is so, so important and so, so vital. Yeah, I've frozen again, haven't I?
Yes.
But it's okay.
We can hear you.
And so you can tell us your story.
I like it, Jim. Absolutely. I wonder why that is. Strange.
If
Sorry,
you want,
continue, gentlemen.
If you want, you could just turn off your camera and we could just do the audio if that.
So it's okay. It should come in. I'm just checking my speed settings and everything here. I've got no idea. I'm up at 300 megs per second. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll turn off my camera. I'm going to stay in. I'm going to turn off and perhaps change the battery. Might help, something like that. Let's continue and I'll chat away.
Yeah.
Okay.
All good.
So stories simply being so powerful. What they do is a good story obviously releases oxytocin, it releases cortisol, it releases dopamine in the brain. When we get those three chemicals in a chemical cocktail, they stick. People remember us. Just telling us about facts, figures, and data, nobody remembers these. They remember stories because they remember how they feel when they were being told them. So that's why stories are so powerful. As human beings, they are bread and butter. They really are. So that's why I feel that stories are so powerful. And within the selling context as well, really, really powerful.
Do you agree with that, Jim? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. And I think sometimes that's kind of the challenge, or where people feel like, well, if I tell a story, is anybody really going to be interested? And I think that's where sometimes people struggle, right? In regards to storytelling. I mean, how did you like even get comfortable with that, Darren?
It's a really good question. I feel that I've always been a little bit of a storyteller. As stupid as that sounds, I feel I've always kind of been a bit of a storyteller, you know? We have them naturally in our communities, in our families, with our friends. Everybody's got the auntie or the uncle who's just phenomenal when it comes to telling stories, right? You'll hear the same story 50 times, but every time you want to hear it. And the reason, the way that I got comfortable was simply by sharing them. I think there's an element of bravery behind them. I think people need to be confident in sharing their stories. When I work with my clients, one of the main reasons people don't share stories are because, for me, we should always try to share some kind of vulnerability, right? And that vulnerability is incredibly scary for people to share. As children, we naturally tell stories all the time to one another. There we go. It's maybe a bit better. Yes. We naturally tell stories to one another as children, but as we get older, we lose this. We lose the confidence. We start worrying about how people might view us, how people might judge us. And this is really, I think, one of the reasons people are scared to. Vulnerability, Brené Brown talks about it a lot, but vulnerability is beautiful. And it is. If you're wanting to sell your product or your service to somebody, we've got to be able to connect with them on an emotional level. Just saying, my product does X, Y, Z, you need it, it doesn't work anymore. And I also feel, especially on LinkedIn, people are sick of receiving direct messages where people are forcing them to a strategy session or to buy their service or buy their product. And I think this is where stories really come in. Why do stories in LinkedIn? Because we want our posts to be sticky. We want our posts to resonate with our audience, to create this community around us, right? We can't build a community if we're just talking about how damn good we are every single time or why we are the best. Let's
Yeah.
actually share our problems, because an imperfect character is what every hero needs, right? We go back to the Greek myths. Well, we've got the idea of Achilles having his heel. We even use it in modern day English as a part of our body, the Achilles heel. These ideas are vital, because when we've got a perfect character, Superman's got his kryptonite, right? Icarus flew too close to the sun. We need these problems. Superheroes have problems. They have a weakness. And this is because it's an innate human nature. We do have weaknesses. So when we just show up and talk about how great we are and how brilliant our product is, people don't buy it anymore. You know, people really want to know the truth. People really want to know about a time that you struggled, a time that you found something difficult. What did you do to fix it? And what did you learn from it? One of my mantras for storytelling really is that we show, you can just about see it, we share our scars, not our scabs, not our wounds. Scars are healed. They no longer hurt us. We've learned from the experience. We have a physical reminder of that traumatic or painful experience, but we're able to talk about it, right?
Yes.
When we share stories that are still raw and we've not learned from them, we risk showering our audience and community in blood. And unless it's a satanic gathering, Tim, Jim, it's not a good thing to do, right? We don't want to do that.
Yes. And this is not a satanic gathering here, just to
exactly. So, contrary to the rumors that are floating around LinkedIn at the moment. Yeah. So it's really important. And another thing to remember is that our audiences are not our therapists. They're not our counselors, right? Our communities look at us as leaders because we've been through a problem or a turbulent moment, but we've learned from it. What did we learn from it? How did we solve it? And what did we learn from it? And we're able to share those actual ideas, just as Nancy says. Stories are affirmations. They're affirmative. It makes us allowed to show our human side. I think this is a big problem when we look at CEOs who don't use storytelling. One of my connections, Adam, ran a poll the other day ago. I think did 1,000 votes, and 18% said stories are not relevant to my industry. It's crazy. I worked in the big pharma companies before, and I heard this all the time. And it's kind of like, well, you know, you can talk about the chemicals and the compounds and stuff, but what's more interesting is the person who invented this. These are the stories that stick, especially if it's in sales or whatever it is. So sharing those stories just allows us to share parts of ourselves. It humanizes us, and we're no longer this extra person who's above everyone else, looking down on everyone. We're amongst them, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I love Darren, what you were saying about being vulnerable in your LinkedIn stories, because I mean, Nancy Barrows is here. She created a movement on LinkedIn called Radiating Real, where you show up as yourself in the moment. You take off your mask and you just, the original concept was she asked people to take a photo of themselves in the morning before they put on their makeup or whatever, just showing up and maybe sharing a thought, sharing a story, right? But it's really grown.
You don't want to see me without my makeup, Tim. I'm warning you.
We do. We expect to see a post tomorrow of you radiating real.
Done.
Awesome. But it's really grown into so much more. And that movement has led into me sharing my story of living with chronic leukemia for almost 15 years and the creation of a show that I'm now doing with Carol Olker. And that has not only, it has led to connecting with other cancer survivors and other people who are impacted by cancer. But my business is also growing at the same time because people are connecting with me on a more human level. I've now more than ever, I have created less business content and more personal content. And I'm connecting with people on a much deeper level.
Well, and that's a great show, by the way, too. I've been able to catch every episode so far. Excited with what you're doing there, Tim. And yeah,
thank you, Jim.
And this goes back to what Darren was talking about earlier, right? The scars are from 15 years ago, and now you're ready to talk about it, right? You weren't ready to talk about it at the time you were going through it, and I think that's a very valuable lesson that Darren has provided us there.
That's so true. I'm glad you pointed that out. And Jim, thank you so much for being there for all 3 episodes so far. notice, and I appreciate you sharing your perspectives and your connections to cancer as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a brief break for a message from our sponsor, StreamYard, which we love to produce this show every week, and we'll be right back on the other side. It's a brand new video, so you guys might want to like dance during it or something. It's pretty energetic. Here we go. And we are dancing, and we are live here with Darren Kip, who is in Spain, and we're talking all about LinkedIn and storytelling, and it's so great to have him here, and all of you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with us. We really appreciate it. And as we're rolling through the show here, guys, let us know what questions you have for Darren about LinkedIn and storytelling. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them for you as we roll through the show here. So Jim, do you want to take this next question for Darren?
Yeah. So Darren, are there any stories that we shouldn't share, especially I would say on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think especially within the LinkedIn thing, I mean, Tim makes a really good point. He's making more personal posts because he's showing the metaphorical scars. He's comfortable doing it. So it kind of ties back to that idea of scars, not scabs. If you're not ready, if you've not healed from that experience, then I would recommend not sharing it. To go to your point, Jim, yeah, there's some stories. I mean, it depends on your niche. It depends on your community, you know? I mean, a story about, I don't know, getting drunk and getting robbed. There could be a really nice moral to that story, but if it's not going to fit into your brand and to your niche, it's probably best not sharing that. But I think that there's very few stories in reality that we shouldn't share. I think we know ourselves what stories to share or what not to share. You know, although it might not be as refined and crafted as storytelling per se, we share stories on a daily basis with our friends, our loved ones, our colleagues, and so on. We've got that filter on that. We know which stories to share and which not, and which ones not to. So yeah, in response to that question, I think it's really is just a case of what you're comfortable sharing. Always thinking as well about your audience. I mean, I think people sometimes, I think a common misconception, well, there's two things. When it comes to storytelling, the hero's journey is held up as the model to use, right? It gets your audience really engaged. You start off with a normal character, just like you and me in the normal world. They kind of have some issue, but they don't realize it. They meet a mentor. The mentor guides them away. There's resistance, and then they decide to go with them. Then they start to approach the innermost cave. They see this problem. They have this problem. They think they can't overcome it. They use the knowledge that they've got from the mentor. They start to overcome it. Then they think they've succeeded. They go home, but oh no, there's another problem. Surely our hero's going to die now. But oh, come on now, seriously. For a business story, this overcomplicates things. So for me, I see a lot of people trying to use the hero's journey, which is great. But let's just remember, Joseph Campbell in 1949 created this as a thesis. He was analyzing religious texts and Greek myths, and he really used this as a thesis to try and explain how they're all put together, the commonality between it. This is lovely. Again, Star Wars follows the hero's journey. But again, unless you're writing a 3-hour movie about space cowboys or whatever it is, it's probably not the best structure to be using. Great movie, don't get me wrong. But for a 2 or 3 minute business story, it's too much. And I think what it also does is for people who are using it within their work, within businesses, I think it creates too many settings, too many characters, too many subplots, double climaxes, too many lessons. It almost encourages the people to have numerous different lessons. I'm a big believer. Every single story should have some sort of moment of change or significant moment of change. I call it a brief moment. It could be 5 seconds that you suddenly realize this wasn't the way forward and what to do. But when we use a hero's journey, sometimes there's so many different things that happen, so many changes, we really lose the story, we lose the idea behind it, and we confuse our audience. Every story should have one moment of change. If it's got more than one, it's a different story. And I think that's really important to emphasize. So the hero's journey kind of gets people a bit confused this way. The name is slightly also kind of privileged almost, the hero's journey. it makes it difficult because people think you've got to be a hero. The word hero we envisage superheroes and Greek myths and things like this, which isn't necessarily the case. The final thing, what I feel it does, is it really encourages the storyteller to place themselves as the hero. Well, none of us like stories where somebody's the hero and they're great, right? The hero is never the storyteller. It's always the audience, right? A successful story builds up the oxytocin, the dopamine, the cortisol in the brain. We feel we're just like that person. I feel for storytelling, we've got 5 real basic elements. We've got Goldilocks emotion, not too much, not too little, just the right amount. We've got our specific details showing we understand the landscape and the life that our characters inhabit. We've got a relatable character. It's key, just like you and just like me. We've got our complication and our brief moment. For these 5 different elements to come together, it naturally creates the story. But the story is always on the audience. If you're using these correctly, the chemical compounds are being created scientifically, and they feel like that person. They feel they're on that journey as you are, but that's where they are the hero, because they're feeling themselves, how would I react to this? What would I have done in this situation? And whether it's sales or whether it's anything else, really, the audience is always the hero. The hero's never a product. It's a big problem people make. They make the product their hero. Well, it's not. The hero's always got to be a person, a relatable character, just like you and just like me.
Wow. That's amazing. And going back to what you were talking about earlier, what you don't share. Now, this is me, right? This isn't everyone. I tend to go along with Ryan Foland wrote a great book called Ditch the Act, where he talks about how you should share more of yourself. But he also he puts it into levels, and like level 4 and 5, it's kind of like DEFCON 4 and 5 and military stuff. You don't go there because it's really risky. And so for me, that's politics and religion. And it's interesting sometimes because people will say, well, why don't you talk about it? And it's like, because is it really necessary? Because, I always kind of like the joke of, when was the last time you convinced somebody on Facebook, to change their mind about, something political or religious? So to me, it's a lot of wasted energy on something that we all have a very personal view on. And I think it goes back to, we should be able to respect each other. And so what I end up tending to see is if people do share that story, even though there may be people that, can do that, there's that percentage, because they can be a keyboard warrior, are just going to attack people. And so I just personally, I stay away from it. But if you're in that business, I could see where, okay, if that's what you're into, great. But I tend to stay away from it. That's just me personally.
There's a great amount of responsibility that we must take on as storytellers, especially when we're either naturally or we're kind of learning and developing. There comes so much responsibility with it, right? Stories are transformative. And in that case, it can transform and create peace, unbelievable peace between 2 sides who hate each other. But alternatively, it can also create a war just as easily, As you say, let's not get into religious and politics, but I mean, you look at any warmonger historically, they told stories. Even recent US history, they've told stories, right? And it's a storyteller. For me, it's a little bit like COVID. Why? Now, again, we're not getting political here, but why have we all heard that 5G creates COVID? Why have we all heard Bill Gates has created COVID? Why have we all heard there's microchips in the vaccines? Now, I'm not here to say whether you believe it or you don't believe it. That's not for me, and it's not for this place to say. But the one thing, the thread that unites them all, it's stories. There's concrete images of Bill Gates profiting, of microchips being in the vaccine. Imagine that. There's a microchip in the needle that goes into your arm and it's tracking you. Well, with our fears about everything in the world and technology as it is, that's I can understand why that story is taken off. I can understand why people believe this. And when you're in a fight against facts and figures, which is very much what science is, and stories, there's only ever, unfortunately, really going to be one winner in that. That's why stories stick. The most ludicrous stories, urban myths. Why are urban myths urban myths? because they stick, right? Because there's concrete images that really stick in our minds, and it helps us to share that story. We're far able to relate these stories, no matter what type of story, we can relate it a lot easier than statistics, facts, figures. Facts and figures don't stick, stories do. So it's great responsibility comes to the storyteller as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Boom. Facts and figures don't stick, but stories do.
There we go.
Mic drop. I love it. I love it. This has been such a great conversation, Darren. Tell people how they can connect with you if they want to learn more about you, maybe work with you, that kind of thing.
Sure, thank you. So obviously LinkedIn, being a LinkedIn and storytelling coach, LinkedIn's the best place to connect. So you can see some of the examples. I think the beauty about LinkedIn posts, about giving some very quick last minute tips about it, is the story elements I've mentioned should be within your posts. So on a very minimal level, the idea of a relatable character and some sort of complication, sharing a weakness, sharing a vulnerability and what you've learned from it. This is how story works on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be a per se story that we recognizably see as a story, but the elements are there because these elements work, they stick. So follow me, connect on LinkedIn. We're always welcome to have new followers. Jump in, ask me some questions. Always loves chatting, as you can tell, about storytelling and LinkedIn. So that's it. And it's really creating engaging content that builds this community. And then the next step, how do we convert that ultimately into clients as well? But what great content does, when it engages, it builds that community. And for me, story is really at the heart of it. Not necessarily a story like your brilliant stories that you share, Tim, but sometimes just your way of thinking, right? We talk about thought leadership. Well, what better way to demonstrate thought leadership through a story and these elements?
That's so true. And we should just thank people again for tuning in. Maria Rouse is here. Thanks for being here. Krista is here. She's in France. She's amazing on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much for being here. Jenny Gold is here. She says she loves this conversation. Alex Chambers is still here commenting. Kara Ulker, my co-host on Showing Up Perspectives on Conversation, she shared her story, her connection with and perspective on cancer last night on the show. I interviewed her and she did an amazing job. And so definitely check out that show. I put the link in the comments, guys. Show her lots of love and support. She just did an amazing job. And at the end of the show, I don't know do you know Peter Clark, Darren, Gibb, or Jim?
I don't, but I saw that he came on. I was very interested to
Yeah, Peter has a live show. He has something called Red TV or Red TV Network. And he has the most heart-centered guests that come on his show. And he sent me a direct message during the show saying, hey, can I come live on your show now to share something? And I was like, okay. So we brought him on, and his spouse, she is in Trinidad with her dad, who was just recently diagnosed with cancer. And he had just gotten off the phone with his spouse, I think it was. And I think he just needed to talk to someone. He just needed to have a conversation. And he saw the notification of our show right when he got off the phone. And he sent a message and said, hey, can I come on the show? And that was just so, like, there's no coincidences, right?
That's incredible. That's incredible, Tim. It really is. And again, I think it comes down to just that power of kind of community sharing, showing vulnerability, showing up, being open, being honest. And it's vital, I think, especially in the last 18 months, 2 years, we are virtually online. There's more and more noise, right? There's more and more noise, static. I think that when we actually have genuine people that are showing genuine emotions, genuine vulnerabilities, genuine solutions, we come together. And it's what you guys do, is what you do in your individual shows, Tim. And it's a beautiful thing. I think people genuinely enjoy this kind of form, and it's connecting with like-minded people. So absolutely awesome. That's a great story, Tim. That's brilliant. Superb.
Thank you. And Stefan's here. Stefan has a great show called The Spin It Social Hour. He's a live stream producer, social media visual strategist, and just a great friend. And we've really bonded through COVID, through it all. So definitely connect with Stefan. He just has a huge heart, and he's an amazing photographer as well. But thank you so much, Darren. Is there anything else you want to say, Jim, before we go?
Sorry, Tim. Can I quickly jump and ask you a question? And if you don't want to answer it, obviously,
you're going to turn this around on the co-host, right?
What I'm doing here, right? What was it that inspired you to share your story? Because that's how I connected with you, was through your stories. That's really what I kind of thought. I really like this guy. This guy's incredible. That's how we connected. We got on that call a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
What was it? What was the calling for you? Only if you feel comfortable sharing, brother. Remember, scars, not scabs, right? But what was the calling for you to share, to really become a real light, I think, with people who have been through, I think, cancer touches so many of us. We did a live stream 2 weeks ago, me playing guitar like an idiot with some incredible musicians. We raised over just $1,000 in an hour. Look, it's not going to change the world, but it's better than nothing on LinkedIn. And it was people saying, they were just hearing stories and sharing their stories, and it opened up a conversation. So there's so much power in it. So that's why I'm really intrigued, Tim. What was it that made you want to share your story and help each other? Only if you feel comfortable, obviously, sharing.
Yeah, I am definitely comfortable sharing it. I like I said, in December, I'm going to be living with leukemia for 15 years. And I did not share my story until June of 2021. So it's only been, 5 months, something like that. And 3 things happened in the matter of 1 week that inspired me to share my story. Like I said, no coincidences. Jenny Gold, who is here in the comments, she has a show called Podcast Not Podcast. And she usually talks about autoimmune issues, or things related to autoimmune. Nancy Barrows had created the Radiating Real movement, and I'll be looking forward a reminder to your post tomorrow. But I had started creating more vulnerable posts on LinkedIn because of that movement that Nancy had created right before this happened. And then the third thing was that Steve Sullivan, who we're going to have on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer next week, he had created a LinkedIn video sharing his story on National Cancer Survivor Day. And he's a 35 plus year survivor of acute leukemia. So the combination of being invited on her show, I had no idea what I was going to talk about except for that. Creating more vulnerable content, more personal content, and being inspired by that video. That video really hit my heart. And I just felt like all these things were happening in 1 week, and for a reason. Like, it was time to share my story. I never planned to do that, especially like on a live stream show. And now I've shared it on so many shows, in newsletters, on virtual events. We created this show because I shared my story. Me and Kara, my co-host, connected because we both created Radiating Real content. She showed up on Brian Schulman's Shout Out Saturday show. I was the producer of the show. She declared herself my bestie with the wording underneath. She said, Kara, Tim's bestie. And we are best friends now. So that's the story.
Wow. Wow, I'm blown away. It's really incredible, beautiful. And I think, on behalf of everyone, brother, I think, we do need to thank you for that. I think it is empowering. I think it's important these stories are shared. It really does bring us together. And I think it helps us to also just remember sometimes that there's more things to life than just business, clients, and everything else, right? It opens us up to one another. And wow, I'm blown away, Tim. Incredible, mate. Incredible.
And Kara says she was watching over on YouTube land, and Nancy tagged her on LinkedIn. Sorry, bestie. I should have sent you the LinkedIn link.
But we like YouTube followers and subscribers. So
we do, but we do get the most engagement on LinkedIn. We really do. And Jacob says it's time for him to share more of his story. Thanks for the nudges. Talk soon. So, yes. And Krista says storytelling is fire, yet it really is hard. So thank you, Darren, for carrying the torch.
Thank you, Krista. Let's all storytell. I'll tell you what else, actually. One last thing to finish on here, right?
Yeah.
Stop caring so much about having a perfect story, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of us are Shakespeare, Cervantes, Dickens, bloody even J.K. Rowling. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Share your story and your community will form around you. A community doesn't have to have one leader. It has numerous, and that allows you to position yourself within that community. As Tim has shared, the stories that come through others, the inspirational ways that stories inspire others is vital. So please, all of you, if you post content on LinkedIn, don't be afraid. Tag me in it. Tag Tim, tag Jim. Let's get a little bit of a storytelling circle going here. Let's give it a go. Because I promise you, you open up more of yourself to your audience. They love you for it. And from a business perspective, they might just want to work with you a bit more. Because you know what? I'm not the only storytelling coach and LinkedIn. Spoiler alert, right? But some people will choose to work with me because of my stories. They'll want to work at others because of their stories, and that's the beautiful thing, you know. We people don't buy people. People buy people like them, and I think that's why storytelling is so important that we do it. So, who cares? Be vulnerable. Actually, writing a story and hitting post is one of the most vulnerable things you can do. But you know what? What I find in LinkedIn, especially, there's not the same level of trolls as there are on other social networks. And there's a lot of love and a lot of support. And Tim, your story about why you shared your story of a story, which I really love. Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. There's a great example. So who cares about vulnerability? And you know what? If you write a story, it doesn't do well or it's not that good, then guess what? Your next one's going to be better. Right. And the one after that's going to be better. And see if it just falls and nobody cares. That's fine. People forget. Let's stop being so perfect. The imperfect hero is king and queen. Let's embrace it. Let's share vulnerability. Let's share with others what we've learned from that experience. And let's grow together, right?
Love it. Love it.
I love it. And I have one last question for you, Darren.
Oh, please.
Where the heck do you get your energy from?
Coffee, as they say in New York and led to believe.
Coffee. Cheers. Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, it's the evening there for him, or early evening. So he's been up for a while. So we're still trying to get to lunchtime.
So you don't want to see me first thing in the morning makeup off on a live stream, Tim. It's not a pretty sight, I tell you. Yeah, great stories are great, guys, because we got a relatable character. We've got his vulnerability, and vulnerability is really important. 4 p.m., 5 p.m., I'm ready to rock.
I think I'm with you, Darren. I'm much more of a night owl. I get my energy as the day gets going. But yeah, I would not want to do a 4, 5, 6 a.m. live stream. I'd rather be asleep.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I do want to shout out Carl Sean Watkins. He's a vulnerability coach and he's amazing. So guys, connect with him as well. You would totally resonate with him. If you don't know him, Darren, definitely connect with him.
Awesome. Please, will do. If any of you want to send over connection requests, that'd be awesome. I'm seeing lots of people in the comments here. I'll go back and check them out, obviously. But yeah, please connect. I'd love to have conversations. I love stories. I really do.
That's for awesome. Sure. Awesome. Okay, so our guest next week is Rob House, and he's going to be talking about the power of habits and automation and how they coincide. So we're excited about that. And side note, Rob House is also an amazing freestyler.
Freestyle what? Dancer, rapper? What's
singer.
A freestyler?
Yeah, like singer. Yeah, like I don't know if you consider it rapping. Maybe it is.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. We want to see some Tim and Jim freestyling next week. Then, if not, all right. I want to see some of your freestyling, guys. Dancing, singing, rapping, drawing, whatever it is. Let's see some freestyle.
Well, I gave you the radiating real assignment, so Jim, I think we're gonna have to. Do this.
Do what?
Exactly. Oh my
God! You
goodness.
don't want me singing. You don't want me singing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Darren, so much. This has been an awesome conversation, full of value, full of energy for sure, full of your amazing accent. Love it.
Very nice. Guys, thank you so much. Honestly, what you're doing is wonderful, both of you together and individually. I just want to thank you so much for inviting me on the show. No, I think it's something that you've got to really talk about community. There's a community in here talking. It's a beautiful thing what you're doing. So thank you to both of you. Really, it's been a pleasure and an honor being on your show. And I'm going to go live. I know you guys are live stream kings, so I'm going to be going live pretty soon. And you've got open invitations to my Mickey Mouse show in comparison to this, but I'll get there.
Hey, if you go back on our Facebook page, you can see show 1. It's been a journey, and it goes back to what you're saying earlier. Just get started, right? You don't have to be perfect. I mean, it's a constant evolution, constant learning. I think just like even getting comfortable telling stories. I'm not as much of a share, I think, when from a vulnerability standpoint as Tim is by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that's partially to my personality. And and I think to your point earlier, Darren, everyone is different. Some things you're going to want to talk about, some things you're not, and that's okay. Don't feel like you're being forced to do that.
Absolutely. When we feel forced, we become ingenuine and unauthentic, right? So that's it. We only share what we're comfortable sharing. We share ourselves. If you're not somebody who naturally shares that sort of thing, that's absolutely fine. Because if you start forcing it, you lose your authenticity. And that's how we connect as human beings. So absolutely right, Jim. Brilliant point, my friend.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
1,000 thanks for all of you and for Jim and Darren. Love you all. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. And if not, we're still so thankful for you. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.